If you've ever asked which camera you should get, you likely got bombarded with advice and suggestions from $30 webcams to $5,000 pro cameras. What are you meant to do? In this video, I want to put a $500 camera against a $2,000 camera to see how big a difference that 4x price tag actually gets you. And if you're interested, I'm going to be using the Sony ZV-E10 and the Sony a7 IV, two very popular cameras that I use and recommend. The first thing you notice getting these out of the box is the difference in the body. The ZV-E10 is a compact camera. The a7 is a larger, heavier body built for pro use. Better ergonomically for someone like me with bigger hands, but when I've got it mounted on a tripod, the size and build doesn't even get noticed. The bigger body does allow for more buttons and dials, meaning that I can change the settings quicker than on the ZV-E10, which requires navigating through the on-screen menus. Let me demonstrate with an example. My camera is here on its tripod when I'm live streaming or recording, but when I want to record some B-roll, I've got to change the frame rates if I want to get that lovely slow motion footage, which means that I also need to change my shutter speed too, which means I'm going to need to compensate with the ISO. Then I realize I've got a Zoom meeting and need to quickly put my camera back in place, but all the settings have changed. I've had customers who get in a right pickle over this. With the A7, I've got a dial right on the top where I can lock in the settings for my main recording as custom 1. And then when I record B-roll, I can dial all those settings in as custom 2. And it couldn't be easier to change between the two of them and know with certainty that when I change back, it's all how I need it. Now, it is possible to save your settings to custom presets in the ZV-E10, but it's not easy to find the memory settings in the menu. In terms of screens, both of these cameras have a 3-inch display with a marginal difference in pixels. How different are the cameras for runtime on batteries? Well, I didn't see any point in running a live test as my batteries are old, but according to the Sony website, you can record on the ZV-E10 for 125 minutes, where on the a7 IV, you get almost another hour with a runtime of 175 minutes. But do you have to run these cameras off batteries? No. If, like me, your camera is staying in the same place, you can use AC power adapters, which allow you to plug straight into the mains and never worry about a battery running out halfway through a recording or a live stream. But please don't leave the cameras on all the time, else you are going to potentially run into issues with overheating. Now, while we're talking about overheating, I do need to warn you that recording 4K in the smaller bodied ZV-E10 can cause the camera to switch off if it gets too hot. But how long does it take before it hits that point? I thought I'd run a test to find out. I set both cameras recording in 4K side by side, pointing at my TV so there was something constantly changing on screen, and I waited to see how quickly I'd lose the ZV-E10. 2 hours later, neither camera showed any signs of struggling, and my test came to an end because the A7 ran out of storage on the 128 gig card. And let's be honest, if I can record for 2 hours straight without an issue, there's no point pushing it past that. If you have ever struggled with overheating with either of these cameras, I've linked to videos in the description offering some tips that will hopefully stop your camera from shutting down on you. Now, this next point won't affect you when you're using a tripod, but what about when you record some handheld B-roll footage? How do the two cameras compare? If I'm honest, they're very similar when it comes to image stabilization. The a7 IV has something called sensor shift stabilization, which means that there are things physically moving in the camera to keep it more stable. But as soon as you turn on active stabilization, these cameras will both crop in and are using the same artificial stabilization. So there's not really a huge difference here. Now, in reality, if you were doing a lot of this, I would recommend investing in a gimbal and making your handheld footage much smoother. But that does bring in another level of complication. So for the main event, what actually is the difference in image quality, and is it worth paying 4 times the price? Well, there's a lot of technical things that we could go into, but our goal here is to make this beginner friendly. So if something is too technical or not important enough, I'm going to be skipping over it. These cameras both record 4K, but there are some small differences. First of all, the ZV-E10 records at something called 8-bit, while the A7 IV records in 10-bit, which really means that the ZV-E10 can capture a total of 16.7 million colors, while the A7 IV records over 1 billion different colors, which sounds like a huge difference, but unless you plan to color grade your footage, then this difference won't really matter because most displays are only 8-bit anyway. Then we have the difference in the sensors. The A7 IV has the larger full frame sensor, while the ZV-E10 has a smaller sensor that crops the image in by 1.5 times. So if I use the same 24mm lens on both cameras, you will instantly see how the crop is applied. You will get a higher quality image from the full frame sensor, but is it really noticeable for what we're doing here? Now, if you plan to record some smooth, slow motion B-roll footage, there is a difference here. In order to achieve that look, you need to record at double the frame rate. And while the A7 IV can record at 4K up to 60 frames per second, if you want to record anything above 30 frames per second with the ZV-E10, then you need to downgrade to 1080. But side by side for a talking head shot like this, can you tell the difference? I've tried to create the same crop and then set both cameras to record in 4K at their best settings. Which do you think is the more expensive and which do you prefer? Let me know in the comments which you think looks better. And for the reveal, camera 1 is the $2,000 A7 IV and camera 2 is the $500 Sony ZV-E10. Did you get it right? Was it close? Let us know in the comments below, please. So ultimately, would you pay the extra even if you could see a difference in the two? Is that difference worth paying 4 times the price? Putting this alongside a $50 webcam, the difference in quality from a $50 to a $500 is huge, but I don't think it's anywhere near as big a jump in quality for the extra $1,500 here. And yes, the $2,000 camera is going to be better than the $500 camera, even though they seem to be pretty equal in this video. And that's because the place where the A7 IV largely stands out are in the advanced features that we won't really benefit from in this setup, and the fact that it's a professional photographer's camera, which is why I bought it. I wanted a great all-round photography and video camera, but actually I don't use this as my main camera, and I never intended to. We always recommend to our impact customers to set up their cameras and leave them in place. It makes recording so much easier and you're less likely to have your settings go wrong. For the last 4 years, I've actually been using my ZV-E10 for all of my videos and I constantly get compliments on the quality. So even with having an A7 IV available, I still use the ZV-10 because for me, the difference in quality isn't worth the inconvenience of tying up my A7. Personally, I think that the upgrade between these cameras isn't where your money should be spent if you're on a budget. The entire list of equipment that I recommend and use, which includes the ZV-E10, the lights, the microphone, come to less than the A7 would cost you once you add a lens. And we get amazing results out of what we've got, and so do our students. But how do you go about setting all of that up to get a look of a camera 4 times the price? Well, in this next video, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps, gear, and decisions I made to build this studio from scratch.